Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I want to do a practical build video today that is also an update. About 6 months ago, mid-January, I did a video called The Second Greatest Paladin Ever regarding a paladin that I was going to be playing in a campaign. And the paladin's name is Secundus Brightblade. You should be able to see the character sheet up on your screen right now. And the idea behind this character was that it was going to be a straight classed paladin. So I was just going to go paladin all the way up to level 12, which was going to be the end of the campaign as far as I understood. Found out later on that the campaign was going to be going to 17th level. And that made me start thinking, do I want to do 17 levels of straight paladin, or do I want to do something else? Well, as often happens, you start playing a character in a campaign and you have a build plan, and certain magic items come up that maybe you weren't counting on. Then certain things happen in play that you weren't counting on, and you pivot. And that is what happened with Secundus. So I want to do an update, show you where Secundus is 6 months later. This is a very difficult campaign. We've had multiple character deaths, including my very first character, which was a wild magic sorcerer that lasted one session, and I should say not even a session, about half a session. The very first session, he died halfway through. And so Secundus was my replacement starting in the second session, and he has survived. This is Secundus. He was called Secundus because he was the second greatest paladin, because there was another character in the group that I also did a video for called the Searing Blade. And the Searing Blade was a gold dragon with golden plate mail armor, or plate armor, and was one level of paladin and then a bunch of celestial warlock. And the idea was to use Searing Smite, and then you would use celestial warlock to enhance the Searing Smite and do a ton of fire damage. And the Searing Blade was the leader of the party and the captain of the ship that we were piloting as a group. And so Secundus was, the idea behind the character was he was the paladin who was a little bit less than the Searing Blade. He was very, very impressive, not quite as impressive, very, very tall, not quite as tall, very, very noble, not quite as noble as the Searing Blade, and was the first mate on the ship. Now, since that first video, in fact, fairly recently, the Searing Blade character died. We've had, like I said, multiple character deaths, and the Searing Blade died, and we were unable to revive him. The player actually was looking to change characters anyways. One thing that has come up a lot in this campaign is fire immunity. And fire resistance has been common too, but fire immunity has come up a lot. So it was frustrating for him to have this character built around fire damage, and it wasn't working. He was looking to change characters anyways. But yeah, his character died, and he's like, don't worry about reviving him. I'm going to move on to a different character. So therefore, Secundus is now impromptu the party leader. He essentially took a promotion. He's now the captain of the ship. So Secundus Brightblade is a paladin, devotion paladin. And one thing I found as the campaign was going on, and this is before the Searing Blade died, was Secundus was going down a lot. Now, I had thought that the character would be pretty good defensively because he wore plate armor and a shield. He was a sword and board character, so he used a sword and a shield. And with shield and plate armor, I generally expect I will be missed more often than I am hit. In this campaign, that has not been the case whatsoever. I would say Secundus was hit, if I was to guess, somewhere between 70 or 80% of the time he was attacked, just because hard fights, and that means that enemies have had bigger chances to hit, bigger bonuses on their to hit rolls. So that 20 armor class just wasn't really a big challenge for enemies that are attacking with plus 13, plus 14 to hit. I was getting hit a lot, And this is a character that doesn't have a huge amount of hit points. Paladins have good D10 hit points. But with a Paladin, it's hard to do better than a 14 Constitution. And so I have a 14 Constitution on this character. And so the hit points were okay, but not enough. I was getting hit and I was getting dropped regularly. Fortunately, not killed outright, but I spent a lot of time on the ground. And so I decided at level, I was taking Devotion Paladin. Plan was to go straight up to level 12 as Devotion Paladin. But at level 6 in Devotion Paladin, I decided to multiclass. So this is what I ended up doing. So as I mentioned, my first character in this campaign was a sorcerer who didn't make it past level 1, but the plan was that he would become a wild magic sorcerer, and he had an arcane focus called the Magicinator, which is this strange clockwork device that he had created, and the idea was that it would malfunction and it would cause his magic to become wild. So during the course of the campaign, it just kind of fit story-wise that Secundus came in contact with the Magicinator, and there was some kind of malfunction, and it somehow caused him to be infused with wild magic. So he multiclassed to wild magic sorcerer. I'd say thematically, it would have been appropriate had that not been the case for him to maybe do draconic sorcerer. But wild magic fit within the campaign. So I went wild magic sorcery, and I'm glad I did. Wild magic has been great. Now, I meant to mention this at some point in the video, and I forgot. But one of the results on the wild magic sorcery table that has come up twice for this character is the next spell you cast does maximum damage. And what's really nice, if you're playing a Sorcerer with the new rules, is that Divine Smite is now a spell, which means that when this came up, the next spell I cast was a Divine Smite, which of course I cast with a high-level spell slot. And then I do a ton of D8s, all maximized. And like I said, that's happened twice and super dramatic both times. This has been very, very good as a subclass for this character. So I went Wild Magic Sorcery. So, of course, you get innate sorcery. You can set this up as a bonus action. You get advantage on your sorcerer spells and +1 DC on your sorcerer spells. And I almost never use it. The reason I almost never use it is because it's a bonus action to set up, and I don't cast that many sorcerer spells that have DCs or that have attack rolls. I'm generally just doing the attack action to attack. So innate sorcery doesn't apply to that. I could True Strike, I suppose, but then I'm only attacking once. I prefer to attack twice. And yeah, save DC spells, I tend not to use very many of them. So it's generally not worth my bonus action to set this up. Though I will say that in this campaign, we have often had the ability to do prep before a fight. We know it's coming, so we can set up some short duration stuff. And when that happens, I set up my innate sorcery, but it usually doesn't come into play. Then we're going to get Font of Magic. Now, Font of Magic is going to give us our sorcery points. It also allows us to change spells into sorcery points. And that's important because as a multi-class character, I'm not going to have as many sorcery points as a full sorcerer is. But because Paladin is also providing spell slots, it allows me to fuel those sorcery points as required. Then we're going to get Meta Magic, and these are the two selections I have. So I have Quicken Spell and Empowered Spell. And these both work well with Paladin. So Quicken Spell, I'm going to come back to. I'm going to explain why Quicken Spell works really nicely for this character. An Empowered Spell. So the idea for Empowered Spell is it says, when you roll damage for a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to re-roll a number of the damage dice up to your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1, and you must use the new rolls. You can use Empowered Spell even if you already used a different Meta Magic option during the casting of the spell. So the spell that I tend to use Empowered Spell for is Divine Smite. So you hit with the Divine Smite. Sometimes you roll great, sometimes you don't. When I don't, that's when I use Empowered Spell, and I re-roll those low rolls, so I always get good damage with my smites. And this character uses their smites all the time. I smite on pretty much every attack action I make. And I would, like I said, I will come back to Quicken Spell. But Empowered Spell is cheap. It's 1 sorcery point. And I almost never run out of sorcery points with this character. Just because, I mean, you're attacking combats usually maybe 3 rounds. So I may be using Empowered Spell once in those 3 rounds. And then, 3 or 4 fights a day. And I tend to still have sorcery points left over at the end of the day. And as I said, I took Wild Magic Sorcerer. And of course, you get Tides of Chaos, which is the big one. Let me bring it up on screen. There it is. You can manipulate chaos itself to give yourself advantage on 1 d20 test before you roll the d20. Once you do so, you must cast a sorcerer spell with a spell slot or finish a long rest before you can use this feature again. If you do cast a sorcerer spell with a spell slot before you finish a long rest, you automatically roll on the Wild Magic Surge table. So my character uses Tides of Chaos to roll initiative. Basically, if I've got Tides of Chaos available and I'm rolling initiative, I use it then. And I seldom use it at any other time because I pretty much always use it, like I said, to roll initiative, and then I might get it back during the combat, but it depends, and again, we'll come back to that. And then I got an ability score improvement at 4th level, and for that I took, guess what? Increased my charisma. So my charisma started at 16 with this character, so that brought it to an 18. And then, of course, you get Sorceress Restoration, which gives you some sorcery points back on a short rest. And like I said, I seldom run out of sorcery points with this character. Now I'm going to go over what the spells I chose are for this character, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's worked since I have made the multi-class. All right, so I grabbed, as cantrips, Blade Ward. Very important spell for this character. Then Light, Mind Sliver, Sword Burst. I have True Strike. And for first level spells, I have Jump, which is good for maneuverability. I often cast it on my steed. So, of course, you get Fine Steed with Paladin, and I use that all the time with this character. The Shield spell. Of course, the Shield spell. And then Sleep, which I don't think I've cast to date. Mirror Image, which I have cast many times. And Web, which I've cast once, and it went okay. And then 3rd level spells, Dispel Magic, Fear, Fireball, and Hypnotic Pattern. And I believe I've cast 1 Fireball, and I've cast 1 Fear spell. And I think that's it for 3rd level spells. All right. So let me explain how this character has worked. So generally, the way it works is sometimes we have a chance to prep for a combat, like I said. If I have a chance to prep for a combat, my concentration is on Blade Ward, and I'll set up a Mirror Image. And what that will do is, if we look at the armor class of this character, it's 23. Now, this has been, like I said, you adjust based on the campaign. This has been a very generous campaign as far as magic items go. So this character has great magic items. So the reason I have a 23 armor class for this character, let me bring this over so you can see equipment. So I have a necklace of prayer beads that has multiple shining smites on it. So I use shining smite a lot with this character. And then I've been sitting on a potion of stone giant strength forever. I've got a ring of protection. So remember, I have a plate and shield. That's 20. So ring of protection brings me up to 21. And then I have this Shield of the Silver Dragon. This is from the Curse of Strahd campaign, and it's a +2 shield. So I have an armor class, base armor class of 23. If I'm concentrating on Blade Ward, what'll happen is, enemy rolls a 25 to hit. I roll the d4, and if I roll a 3 or 4, they're going to miss, because that'll be a 26 or 27 armor class. So it is very, very difficult to hit this character to begin with. Then what happens is, if they roll, say, a 30, well, then I'm going to roll my Blade Ward, and maybe I get a 3, and that brings me to 26, and then I cast Shield, and now I'm up to 31. And so, sorry, the 30 missed. Then there is the case where maybe I am hit with a 36. Okay, well, that's going to hit. But then, as long as I got it up, I'm going to roll my mirror image. And so it will probably hit a mirror image instead. And on top of that, this character uses a longsword. And this has come up. So the longsword has the Sap Mastery. What the Sap Mastery says is if you hit with the weapon, then the next attack that they make has disadvantage. And this happened as fighting a frost giant. And the DM was so happy because he rolled to hit me, and he rolled very quick. And he's like, attack Chris, and boom, critical. And I'm like, it's Sap Mastery. He has disadvantage. And then he rolled a second time, and he missed, and he was so upset because he had thought he had actually hit me because he had been missing me that entire combat. This is the same combat that the Searing Blade died in, by the way. So Sap Mastery on top of Blade Ward, on top of Mirror Image, on top of Shield Spell, on top of magic items, on top of Plate, on top of Shield. Secundus does not get hit very often. So I no longer spend time on the ground. I haven't gone down in combat in a while. So let's talk about the other side. So how about offense? How does that work? And I should actually go back because I saved talking about Quicken Spell. So like I said, often we have a chance to prep for a combat. So then I'll throw up my mirror image, and I will throw up an 8 sorcery just in case, and I will throw up my Blade Ward. And I should mention I use Shining Smite a lot. When I use the Shining Smite, of course, the Blade Ward goes down. The defenses are still stacked high enough with this character that it's pretty much okay. Then with Quicken Spell, if on round 1 we have not had a chance to prep, what I can do is I can quicken either a Blade Ward or a Mirror Image, and then use my action to cast the other one. And because Blade Ward is a cantrip and doesn't use a spell slot, I can cast them both on the same turn. And then my defenses are full. And then it's going to be very hard to hit me in combat. I'm not convinced this would be a fantastic character for offense normally, just because longswords, I mean, the damage isn't terrible. It's a D8 damage, but you can't really boost that with any feats. There's no great weapon master with the longsword. This is part of what you face when you play a sword and shield character. But this character has gotten a silver sword. And again, this is just a magic item thing. But yeah, essentially, I have a sword. It is +1 to hit, and it's an extra 2d6 psychic damage. It's basically a lesser version of the Astral Silver Swords that Githyanki use. So I've got a silver plate, silver sword, silver shield on my silver Dragonborn. And yeah, the silver sword with a +1 to hit, and then I'm a Devotion Paladin, so I'm using Sacred Weapon. Put that all together, that's +15 to hit. This character very seldom misses. In the last session, which was just this last week, I missed on my first attack action, like both attacks. I was fighting a blue dragon that had a greater invisibility up, 22 armor class. Attacked twice, and I actually missed twice. And that's the first time I've missed with an entire attack action in as long as I can remember. It was like, I missed, I didn't hit even once. Wow, that is just unheard of for this character. I normally hit at least once a round, and often twice a round, with a +15 to hit, right? It's a D8 +7. It's basically +1 from the +1 weapon, +4 from strength, and +2 more from the dueling combat style, brings me to +7, and then the 2d6 psychic. Now, this happens to be a campaign where psychic would not be a reliable damage type, and I kind of think the DM might have been thinking that a little bit when they gave out this weapon. But here's the thing. Devotion Paladin, because here is Sacred Weapon, which I use basically all the time. I can't remember if there's ever been a combat I have been unable to use Sacred Weapon in. When you take the attack action, you can expend one use of Channel Divinity to imbue a melee weapon with positive energy. For 10 minutes, or until you use this feature again, you add, in this case, it's your Charisma modifier. For me, that's a +5 to attack rolls made with that weapon, and each time you can cause it to deal its normal damage type or radiant damage. So the normal damage type for the Silver Sword is slashing damage and psychic damage. Or I can have it do radiant damage, which I do all the time. So that extra 2d6 damage becomes radiant damage because I am a Devotion Paladin. And I bring this up because I'm about to release my subclass ranking for Devotion Paladin. This is a factor. The fact that you can change your damage type to radiant on your weapon is significant. And in this campaign, it is significant that I can change both that slashing and psychic damage to radiant. That really, really helps. And then I use smites. So my bonus action is available. I specifically made the character so my bonus action would be available. Like I said, I normally don't put up innate sorcery. I'm normally not quickening spells. I sometimes quicken spells on round 1 just to set things up. But as soon as I start making attack actions, my bonus action is free. And I use them for smites. So I get a free Divine Smite, right? Every day. Every Paladin does at 2nd level. And then I use spell slots to smite, and I upcast smites all the time. This character, as a Paladin 8 Sorcerer 5 currently, has up to 5th level spell slots. So I can smite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 times my character can smite, and that's if I don't use Font of Magic to create more spell slots. So I never run out of smites, and one thing I see in comments regularly is how Eldritch Smite is just better than Divine Smite now, and it is better in some ways. You have that bonus action free if you do need it for something else. This character doesn't. Where Divine Smite is better is that it doesn't have to be a Warlock Pack slot you use, because with Warlock Pack slots, you're probably talking 2 smites per short rest, if that's the only thing you're using your spell slots for. This character has spell slots for other things, no problem. Plus, they can smite every time they attack. Unless they miss twice, like they did in the last session, which was so surprising. But very, very seldom that happens. Normally hitting at least once, and then you smite, and then you empower it if you happen to roll poorly. So I'm going to go over quickly how the character is made. So I talked about what I took with Sorcerer. Here's what I took with Paladin. So we're going to get Lay on Hands with 8 levels of Paladin. That's currently 40 points of Lay on Hands. That's another bonus action. That's tough to do because I'm usually smiting with my bonus action, but it's there when I need it. Often other party members go down and I need to lay on hands on them, or I use it in between combats to heal myself up. Weapon mastery, currently longsword and javelin, and I pretty much use longsword all the time. And then the fighting style, I mentioned this before, I have dueling. Paladin Smite gives me the free Divine Smite, and Divine Smite is automatically prepared. Then we get Channel Divinity, and I've talked about that. We use Sacred Weapon with Channel Divinity, and that's pretty much all I do with it. And for ability score improvements, at 4th level, Mage Slayer. Always Mage Slayer first. I get comments on videos where I talk about Mage Slayer, and they're like, Paladin doesn't need Mage Slayer because they get their aura protection. This character uses Mage Slayer all the time. All the time. I need to use it to make a mental save, and mental saves are often very important. And you get it back on a short rest, and I have used it multiple times in the same session. That's how good Mage Slayer is. If I was to consider the number of sessions I played over the last 6 months, and the number of times I've used Mage Slayer, I bet you I average about 1 use per session. That's how good Mage Slayer is. And then I increase my strength score with it because, we started with strength. Then extra attack, Faithful Steed. Like I said, I use that all the time. Faithful Steed is even better than I thought. I want to thank my friend Jonathan for pointing this out to me, because sometimes I read things and I insert things that I expect to be there. So the otherworldly steed, I always choose the Fey option. Always, 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 because it has Fey step. The steed teleports along with its rider to an unoccupied space of your choice up to 60 feet away from itself. I had read this probably 20 times, and I didn't realize with 20 times reading what it doesn't say. It doesn't say it needs to see the place it's teleporting to. So it's not like a Misty Step for your found steed. It's a dimension door for your find steed. With every single casting, except it's a second level spell to cast the find steed. In addition to getting the warhorse, you get this little dimension door as a bonus action. So yeah, that's really, really, really good. Aura Protection, of course, that's why I have a higher charisma than my strength, because Aura Protection is that good. Then Aura of Devotion makes me and anyone in my aura immune to the charm condition. And then at 8th level, I finally got my charisma up to 20. So now I want to talk just very quickly about where I go from here. So I am currently Paladin 8, Sorcerer 5. As I mentioned, the campaign is expected now to go to 17th level. So we're 13th level, should have 4 levels left. So I could go Paladin 12. That'd get me another feat. It would also get me at 11th level. I do an extra d8 damage with my hits. If I was having trouble with damage with hits, I think that's the way I'd go. Except with the Silver Sword, I'm already doing pretty good damage and smites. I could go Sorcerer 9. That would get me another feat. It would get me up to 5th level spells, except I'm not sure what 5th level spells I care about for Sorcerer. I'm generally using my high level spell slots on smites or upcasting my faithful steed. So not too concerned about that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go into Warlock. And frankly, if I was to build this character from level 1, I might start with Warlock, maybe with a 2nd level dip. And then I could take Pact of the Blade, and then I wouldn't need to invest as much in strength. Because you could, Pact of the Blade and just attack by charisma, and then Sacred Weapon, and then you double up your charisma. But in my case, I don't even know if I'm going to take Pact of the Blade. I mean, I'll take it at level 1 because you have very few options for invocations at level 1, but I'll likely switch it out at level 2. I'll go 4 levels of Warlock, and here's what I'm going to take. Lessons of the first ones, lessons of the first ones, lessons of the first ones. And what will I get with those? I will get Musician, and that's going to give everyone heroic inspiration. I will get Tough. That's going to take care of the hit point situation, which was made worse by multiclassing into Sorcerer, even though I usually don't run out of hit points, but it will toughen me up even further, and I will take Alert, and then I will have a decent initiative score. I would normally consider Lucky as well, though I have Tides of Chaos to give me advantage when I really need it, so I think I'm okay without the Lucky, but that is the plan for that. So that's the update on Secundus, who has been working extremely well since the multiclass, and yeah, now party leader, no longer the second best Paladin, the best Paladin. So thanks everyone for watching, and until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody. Talk to you soon.